Travis went and good song. Daniel chapter 2, starting in verse 31. Thou, O king, sawest and beheld a great image. This great image, whose brightness was excellent, stood before thee, and the form thereof was terrible. The image's head was of fine gold, his breasts and his arms of silver, his belly and his thighs of brass, his legs of iron, his feet part of iron and part of clay. Thou sawest till that the stone was cut out without hands, a stone which smote the image upon his feet that were of iron and clay, and brake them into pieces. Then was the iron, the clay, the brass, the silver, and the gold broken to pieces together, and become like the chaff of the summer threshing floors. And the wind carried them away, that there was no place found for them. And the stone that smote the image became a great mountain and filled the whole earth. And so, this is clear, yet Christians purposely screw it up, because the head of gold is Babylon. It's Nebuchadnezzar. He's the head here. The silver is Persia. And the belly and thighs are Greece. And the legs are the Roman Empire. So that the feet of iron and part of clay is Constantine, that ended the Roman Empire and resulted in Christianity. So the stone was cut out without hands that smote the image, breaking Constantine's church into pieces. Yeah, Christianity has been destroyed and shattered into many pieces, as is evidenced today. All of these kingdoms have fallen. And so, under Joseph Smith, there have been many branch-offs that continued with the other branch-offs. Bring up the picture here. There she blows. My goodness. Over 70 branches of Mormonism. And it's incomplete because I would expect, therefore, to see the Utah Lighthouse Ministries branch off from Brigham Young. Yep, they don't have them. Gerald and Sandra Tanner were Mormons, and before getting sealed in the temple, they chose to leave the church because they were learning things about the church history that the church had been lying to us about, and they formed their own Utah Lighthouse Ministry. And so they're not any different from any of these other branch-offs. And so I don't understand why they're not included on this chart. And another error is Brigham Young is assumed to continue the main line. When Joseph Smith was assassinated, his church ended. There were a bunch of people who claimed that they were the true successor, and that their method of succession was based upon their position in the Church of Joseph Smith's. And so Brigham Young, his manner of succession is the president of the Quorum of the 12. Why? Because he was the president of the Quorum of the 12. And so others likewise had that same claim, just because of the different positions that they held in the church, whether it had been the High Council or somebody who had the gift of translation of ancient documents that he created. Yeah, James String. And so Brigham should not be its main line here. It should be a branch off below. And anybody that comes from Brigham Young would have to be a part of.
You go eat lunch down there?
Break.
Yeah, I did.
Pretty surprising.
Very surprising chicken.
Yeah, we had chicken.
I mean lunch.
Yeah.
And so we don't get napkins, so we gotta go wash up
Sometimes
afterwards.
they surprise us.
Yeah, they do. Sometimes
But anyway, I'm trying to do a video.
Always donating.
And so the majority of these are branch offs from Brigham Young. As the first one seems to be the Church of, well, it's during that intermittent period where Brigham Young claimed to be the leader and people didn't want to follow Brigham, so they formed their own church. And so I guess we'd have to go to after 1847 when we have the Brigham Young branch offs. And there are many multitudinals. So I've done the videos before, but of course there's many who are new, who've not been keeping up. In 1887,
I want seconds.
in 1887, the United States shut down the Church of Brigham Young with the Edmunds
You did
Tucker
what?
Act,
Second.
with all the crimes that they were committing with tithing and polygamy. They were only pardoned by Grover Cleveland for polygamy.
Cool. I mean, the Android, Samsung,
And
they definitely, their phones, I think, do a lot more than the iPhone.
and so Wilford Woodruff,
And
Lorenzo
always just had an
Snow,
iPhone.
Joseph Fielding Smith Sr.,
Did you get up
and
in it yet?
Heber J.
No.
Grant at the beginning until
I mean, I'm
1923
still trying to set-
are not
set things
legitimate
up.
presidents of the church because the church did not exist.
Yeah, that's
But
what.
they
'Cause I can't.
don't want
I
us to
can't
know
call
this because that ruins their authority.
Some people
That
won't let
they
me.
were actually shut down.
Well, they had to check.
And this is why Brigham Young continues to claim Joseph Smith
Yeah.
and the Book of Mormon
You're saying
is because without it,
33rd.
he has no claim to authority other than his own claim to his own brand new church. And he instead decided to keep Joseph Smith, keep the Book of Mormon, and turn them Christian with Jesus as the Christ. And so in 1920 you have the Fellowship Church, wasn't it? Yeah, the Council of Friends. Who were the first major break-off. Church of Christ Temple Lot. It's not really a branch off from Brigham Young. I don't know what they're doing there. This chart needs massive revision. And so Brigham Young technically is the first president of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. That's his church's name. And he had Willard Richards go through all of Joseph Smith's works to ensure that that would be the case, replacing the Church of Christ or the Church of Latter-day Saints to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, so that they can justify their authority and claim. And so, yeah, and Council of Friends in 1920, which is branched off into all different groups: the Apostolic United Brethren, Latter-day Church of Christ, the Kingston Clan. Try to find some other famous ones you might know. I'm not finding Warren Jeffs' church. He's got to be in here somewhere, unless they left him out too. So, no, that's Restored Church of Jesus Christ. But yeah, you'll notice that the majority of Brigham Young's branch-offs utilize Jesus Christ, whereas the branch-offs from Joseph Smith, the majority of them are just Church of Christ. And so yeah, in 1923, Heber J. Grant kept the name that had been banned by the United States and restored Brigham's Church with the name, and fooled Mormons into believing that it was a true linear descent from when the church was shut down under John Taylor. And like I said, the church has to do that in order to maintain their authority in the eyes of the Mormons. And they've been successful. They've fooled even CNN, as well as the rest of the world, into believing that they're the true successors of Joseph Smith, as if none of these other groups are even in existence. And the church is able to claim that all these are apostates because they have to maintain their authority, which they lost. If you're familiar with Section 121, many are called, but few are frozen. And so, yeah, the same pattern has collapsed with Joseph Smith's church, similar to Daniel's dream, is that other have come by and they've all collapsed. And so this one of Heber J. Grant, yeah, it should be on the verge of collapse, but their massive wealth is able to leverage government as they've controlled the whole state of Utah. So, the Bible, Old Testament specifically, prophesies of the usurpation of Joseph Smith's church by the Great and Abominable Church. That is the theme of Genesis, in fact. Character after character after character are usurping or being usurped of their birthright and blessing, and thus leadership of the church. And so it begins with Cain killing Abel, as Abel's church is usurped. Cain's church then reigns supreme. In the Genesis account, Adam and Eve have Seth that is born, from which Noah derives from. The Egyptian documents from which the story comes from, it's Cain that would be the descendant of Noah, or the ascendant ancestor of Noah. And that fits the harmony with Genesis. But the author of the story didn't like it, that a murderer would be the ancestor. And yet, you go on to see the others that are likewise involved, though not necessarily murder, but rape or sexual infidelity. But then you have Noah then, who usurps it from the birthright blessing son who dies in the flood. It's not really a focus in the story, but it's understood from the context. And then you have Shem usurping the birthright and blessing of Japheth, who's the birthright blessing son. And Ham, likewise, is also subjected under Shem. And then you have Abraham, who usurps the birthright and blessing from Pharaoh, even though his wife is raped. And Isaac is born. And then Isaac usurps the birthright blessing from Ishmael. And then you have Jacob, who usurps the birthright blessing from Esau. And then you have Joseph, who usurps the birthright blessing from Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah. Though Judah is prophesied to be of the kingdom of the Jews, and Joseph of the other tribes of Israel, when they're fractured in half after the death of Solomon, Rehoboam takes over, and then Jeroboam divides the kingdom. And then you have Ephraim usurping the birthright blessing from Manasseh. And then it pretty much ends at that point. It didn't really go into how Ephraim usurped it from Manasseh, as Joseph is the hero story of Genesis. And so it should be the book of Joseph rather than Genesis. And so it should be the 4 books of Moses rather than the 5 books of Moses. So, yeah, this is a symbolism for the latter days, in which in Deuteronomy chapter 18 verses 15 through 19, the Lord thy God will raise up unto thee a prophet from the midst of thee of thy brethren like unto me. Unto him ye shall hearken. And this is the future man like Moses. Man like Moses. Mortal man. This is the Jewish learning of a Christ. And of course Christians can't accept that because that destroys their authority. And likewise Brigham's church to Nelson can't, and every other branch off of New Brigham Young likewise can't accept this for their authority. Has to be Jesus, who doesn't exist. And so in order for this to happen, you have to have Joseph Smith's church collapse, get usurped. And Joseph Smith understood this, as 2 Nephi chapter 3 talks about Joseph Smith being a man like Moses, but uses seer rather than prophet, and then talks about the man like Moses and Moses. And so Joseph Smith is therefore a Christ. And then you have section 103 verse 16, where the man like Moses is a Mormon who's supposed to free Mormons from bondage. Redemption of Zion must needs come by power. Therefore I will raise up unto my people, there's the pattern with Deuteronomy, a man who shall lead them like as Moses led the children of Israel. For ye are the children of Israel, the seed of Abraham, and ye must needs be led out of bondage by power and with a stretched out arm. And as your fathers were led at first, even so shall the redemption of Zion be. And in Deuteronomy, in verse 20, he talks about the false prophet of the latter days. Revelation talks about the false prophet. Joseph Smith, likewise, talks about the false prophet. Section 85, verse 8. After talking about the man like Moses, who he calls here the one mighty and strong, he then goes on to say, while that man who was called of God and appointed, that putteth forth his hand to steady the ark of God, shall fall by the shaft of death, like a tree that is smitten by the vivid shaft of Jupiter, lightning. The symbol there. Jupiter is the planetary fulfillment of the sign in heaven given by John in Revelation chapter 12. It's a symbol of Jupiter. Jupiter being the planet, which is the one that retrogrades for a period of a pregnancy period. It's now on the back of the white horse, Revelation 19, doing battle with the great and abominable church and taking heavy casualties. But prophesied, and there are very few believers, too many rebellious who want to deny, and they have to, because their whole existence depends on the falsehood. The big lie.